What if I told you the biggest betrayal in the WNBA isn't happening on the court, but behind closed doors, and it's about to flip everything you think you know about the Indiana Fever upside down? Yeah, this isn't just drama, this is straight-up corporate warfare. Welcome back to WNBA Vibe. Lock in, cut the distractions, because what we're about to break down today will completely change how you see this organization moving forward. Because while the mainstream media keeps feeding you that clean, polished storyline, talking about tough decisions from names like Amber Cox, Kelly Kroskopf, and Stephanie White, real ones already know something doesn't add up. This ain't normal roster building. This ain't strategy. This is deeper. This is money, control, and a power struggle that's getting real ugly behind the scenes. And if you're really paying attention, you can see it clear as day. This front office is moving like they're protecting something, or someone. Because what we're looking at right now isn't basketball logic, it's a calculated move that could go down as one of the most savage decisions in league history. I'm talking about a scenario where they seriously consider choosing Kelsey Mitchell over Caitlin Clark. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. Because what you're about to see next, it makes this whole situation even crazier. Check this out. Fire.
And maybe it's not even a mistake on their end. Stephanie White has already come out and said how Kelsey Mitchell is the #1 priority and how she wants to build this team around Kelsey Mitchell. And if they are committing to giving her
that clip right there? Yeah, you can literally feel the tension coming off it. That wasn't just a normal media comment. That felt personal, almost calculated. Now listen closely to what's really being said here. When Stephanie White goes public and says keeping Kelsey Mitchell is the #1 priority for the franchise, that sends a shockwave straight through the entire fan base. Because at the same time, you've got Caitlin Clark sitting on that roster, the player who completely flipped the spotlight back onto the Indiana Fever and basically became the engine driving attention, ratings, and momentum around the league. So when a coach frames the future around a veteran scorer instead of the league's most electric playmaker and market mover, fans start asking serious questions. Is this just basketball philosophy? Or is there something bigger going on behind the scenes? Because moments like that don't just happen randomly. They shape narratives, locker room dynamics, and even contract leverage across the league. And when media deals, salary structures, and the upcoming collective bargaining shifts enter the conversation, things get even more complicated than people realize. But here's where it gets really wild. Because the next clip reveals the part most fans haven't even connected yet, the financial pressure building behind the scenes that could explain why this situation is heating up the way it is. Watch this. I prefer this response.
Sports and Alexa Philippou, the new CBA will allow high-performing players on rookie contracts to earn larger fourth-year salaries, all right? Players who make all WNBA first or second team in their first 3 years can make the max in the fourth year.
Now that breakdown. That's where things stop being emotional and start getting real cold, real calculated. Because once you look at the numbers behind WNBA's new system, you realize this isn't just a team decision, this is a full-blown financial chess match. The new CBA changed everything. Rookie contracts aren't just rookie contracts anymore, they're ticking time bombs. If a generational talent like Caitlin Clark hits that MVP level early, the payoff is massive. We're talking about a potential supermax that reshapes the entire franchise. And right behind her, Aaliyah Boston is lining herself up for a huge payday too. So now you've got 3 major financial forces colliding: Clark, Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell. And here's the brutal truth. The math doesn't work. It doesn't matter how you spin it, how you market it, or how you sell it to the fans. The salary cap won't allow all 3 to coexist on max-level deals. That's not an opinion, that's a hard limit. Which means if the front office, names like Amber Cox and Stephanie White, are already signaling a long-term commitment to Mitchell, then the decision has basically been made behind the scenes. And that decision? It's choosing the present comfort of the veteran system over the explosive future built around Clark. And the consequences are brutal. You're not just paying one player, you're sacrificing the entire ecosystem. Role players, defenders, chemistry pieces, all gone. The kind of players that make a superstar actually dominate. Players like Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham suddenly become expendable. That's how dynasties collapse before they even begin. But here's the part they don't want you thinking about. This isn't just about cap space anymore. This is about ego. Control. Ownership trying to rewrite the story of their own success like they built it without her. And trust me, what comes next? That's where this whole situation goes from messy to completely out of control. Watch this. Fire.
That's your whole goal. Let's be clear here with what the Indiana Fever's goal is. The goal of the Indiana Fever is to build up the organization and get the fans to want to lock in with them so that they can make this money.
That right there. Pure arrogance, and you can feel it coming straight from the top of the Indiana Fever. This isn't just about building a team anymore. This is about building a brand, and not the kind that wins championships, the kind that tries to control fans. They want to be the Apple of women's basketball, where people ride for the logo no matter who's on the court. But here's the problem. They're trying to rewrite reality. Because this entire explosion, this sold-out arena energy, this global attention, it didn't come from a logo. It came from one name, Caitlin Clark. That's the engine. That's the draw. That's the reason millions are locked in right now. Nobody's tuning in just to watch a jersey. They're tuning in to watch a generational anomaly from Iowa break defenses like it's nothing. And deep down, the front office knows that. Which is exactly why this move feels so calculated. Because if Clark ever walks in free agency, let's be real, the entire system collapses overnight. The hype fades, the arenas empty out, and suddenly all that brand power disappears like it was never real. That's the risk they're playing with right now, and they're doing it anyway. Why? Ego. Control. A front office trying to prove they run the league, not the superstar. But now we're stepping into dangerous territory. Because if they've already decided they don't want to pay that future supermax, then there's only one way to stop it from happening. You can't block it in a meeting room. You can't negotiate it away. You have to stop her, on the court. And what you're about to see next. That's where this whole thing turns from controversy into something way more serious. Watch this. Fire.
Do it. Here it says, Caitlin Clark will become eligible for the Supermax in 2027 if she wins MVP this season. Do you think they're going to want her to make $1.7 million next season? No, which means they're going to sabotage. They're going to stay in the way. They're going to try to minimize her so that she doesn't win the MVP. She's tied with Asia Wilson as the odds on.
That last clip. Yeah, now you see how ugly this can really get. Because if what we're watching is even remotely close to reality, then Caitlin Clark isn't just battling defenses this season. She's battling the system inside her own team. And that's where things go from messy to straight up dangerous for the Indiana Fever. Because think about the strategy being implied here. If a player is on track to dominate the league, win MVP, and unlock a massive financial obligation, the only way to stop that isn't in contracts, it's in gameplay. Slow the pace. Take the ball out of her hands. Shift the offense toward Kelsey Mitchell. Push volume scoring over elite playmaking. And suddenly, what should be a fast, lethal, high IQ system turns into a clogged, predictable grind. That's not just bad basketball, that's self-sabotage at the highest level. And if that's really the direction being pushed by leadership figures like Stephanie White and executives such as Amber Cox, then you're not building a contender. You're creating internal conflict. Because great players don't stay quiet when you limit their impact. Superstars don't just accept being controlled. And when the face of your franchise feels that pressure, that's when things explode. What makes it even crazier is, there's a smarter play sitting right there. You build around your generational engine. You optimize the roster. You surround Clark with defenders, shooters, and screen setters who amplify her gravity. That's how dynasties are built in modern basketball. But instead, if you lean into ego, politics, and short-term comfort, you risk losing everything. And here's the reality nobody can escape, the market already chose. Fans, sponsors, global attention, it's all locked onto one player. You can try to slow it down, you can try to reshape the narrative, but you cannot suppress that kind of momentum forever. Sooner or later, it breaks through. So now it all comes down to this season. When things tip off, we're not just watching games, we're watching a power struggle unfold in real time. And trust me, every possession, every timeout, every decision, it's all going to tell a story. If you want real, unfiltered breakdowns like this, no corporate spin, no sugarcoating, hit subscribe right now and lock into WNBA vibe. And I want to hear from you. How many games do you think the Indiana Fever lose if they don't fully unleash Caitlin Clark? Drop your take below. Because one thing's for sure, this isn't just basketball anymore. This is a full-blown takeover in progress, and you do not want to miss what happens next. Fire!